Hi everyone, we're going to quickly talk about the causes of World War One today. So we're going to start with what I call the immediate cause of World War One. Some people call it the spark that started World War One, or the fuse that resulted in this big explosion of World War One. It's different than the underlying causes, and we'll get to those in a second. So it all starts with this country called Serbia, which had some issues and conflict with the Austrian Hungarian Empire. So the Austro Hungarian Empire was growing, was expanding. They were taking nations around them and annexing them down here towards the Alps. Bosnia was being annexed, and Serbia and Serbians, especially Serbian nationalists that believed Serbia was a great country and had significant pride in their country, believed these people that were in Bosnia were more like Serbians. So if anyone should take over this area, it should be Serbia. So they were very upset that Austria-Hungary was doing that. So a group of Serbian nationalists hired some Serbian assassins, a group of 6 of them that we'll call the Black Hand, and they're going to try to assassinate the leader of Austria-Hungary. So the man who actually pulls the trigger is a man named Gavrilo Princip, and he's a Serbian assassin who is going to actually kill the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, which is what is going to set off World War One in the first place. So he assassinates them, which starts a chain reaction, which results in World War One. So let's get to those reasons. So here's our little shortcut to remember. So the trick is, if we can remember the phrase main, the word main, we should remember the causes of World War One. So I like to think of it as a piece of dynamite. So what immediately makes World War One possible is the immediate cause, which was the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand by that Serbian assassin Gavrilo Princip. And what actually causes World War One to happen, the underlying causes, which make the war not just between Austria-Hungary and Serbia, but a world war, is main. So let's start with the M. The M is going to stand for militarism. What I just mean by that is these European countries are building up their militaries. They're getting ready for war, and they're glorifying war, violence, militarism. And because they have these big militaries and they're glorifying the military, they're more willing to use them. The second one, which I believe is the most important one, is alliances. All of these countries begin making agreements and promises to come in and help other countries if there's a war or conflict that they're involved in. They actually have agreements to do so. So if one country goes to war, another country is going to come in and help them. And we're going to show you how that works in just a second. The I stands for a word that we've already talked about if you've been watching the previous videos, which is imperialism. So remember, imperialism is just when one country is dominating another country in some type of way, militarily, politically, economically. So the Europeans, not just Americans, were practicing imperialism all over the world, in Asia and Africa and Latin America, and they were dividing the world up and trying to conquer these less developed nations to take their raw materials, to open new markets, to spread their culture. Imperialism was a sign that countries were getting stronger, but they kept competing with each other for these new territories that they could acquire and use imperialism on. So this creates an immediate conflict between them. They're already competing in that sense, so when war actually breaks out, they're more likely to actually go against each other because they see at the end of the tunnel, at the end of the war, that maybe they'll be able to acquire even more territories, even more land that will make them more powerful. And the N is what we call nationalism. Nationalism just means that they are very prideful. They are very supportive of their country, and they're willing to fight and die for that country, and willing to defend it and go to war and join the military to do so. So all of these create a condition for create the conditions for World War One to actually be possible. Without these, if that Serbian assassin killed the Archduke Ferdinand, like we said, and these weren't happening, countries didn't have big militaries, there weren't this series of alliances, they weren't competing for new territories, they didn't have a lot of pride, World War One wouldn't have happened. These are the reasons why it happened. The assassination is just the spark, the fuse, the immediate cause that makes it possible makes all these things come together to make World War One possible. So let's look at alliances a little more in depth so we have an idea of how that actually works. So this is by no means all of the countries in Europe, but here's a few big ones. So let's go through it. So here's our immediate cause. Archduke Ferdinand from Austria-Hungary is assassinated by Gavrilo Princip, the assassin from Serbia. What then happens right away, pretty much, Austria-Hungary is going to declare war on Serbia for killing one of their leaders. So they're going to declare war. But the thing is, Serbia has an agreement, an alliance with Russia, who's to the north of Austria-Hungary. So Russia is now going to declare war on Austria-Hungary for attacking one of their allies. But now, Austria-Hungary's ally, Germany, they had an agreement with Germany, is going to join to help Austria-Hungary defend against Russia. So now Germany is going to get involved and go after primarily Russia, but also Serbia. Now France sees that Russia's going to be attacked, and France had an agreement to help their ally, who was Russia. So now France is joining in, and they're going to fight Germany as well as Austria-Hungary. And then Great Britain also has an agreement to help France when they enter war, which is going to cause them into the war. So quickly, this small conflict between Serbia and Austria-Hungary spreads throughout Europe. And these are just the main alliances that take place. There's a lot more countries that get involved, but these are the heavy hitters. These are the big ones. So when it's all said and over, these are going to be our main people. So here's our immediate cause, as we've said. And then the world's going to pretty much be divided into two powers, what we call the Allies or the Allied powers and the Central powers. So Austria-Hungary, Germany are going to be the main ones on the Central power side. France, Russia, Serbia, Britain, and eventually the United States are going to be the main opponents of them on the ally side. And Serbia is not going to actually be that much involved. They'll fight and such, but they're definitely not as strong of a country as the other ones, France, Russia, and Britain. So this war kind of eclipses the main two countries in the first place. It really becomes a war between Britain, France, and Russia versus Germany. And then Russia's going to drop out eventually, as you should have learned in world history. It goes a little further. There's also another country, an empire really, which is further south, called the Ottoman Empire, which will be a big power that also fights. So it really is a world war. So that's a quick explanation on how World War I started and the underlying causes. Don't forget, Maine. Thanks, guys.